We are
And we're
live.
live.
Woohoo!
Welcome to the
Excellent.
future.
Excellent. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening, creatures of the night. Although it's only night here, you guys still having your sunset?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is our second to last night of standard time. Tomorrow, Saturday or Sunday morning, it is at 2 a.m. It becomes daylight savings time. So
I still have 2 more weeks of regular time.
Yeah. Okay.
They were actually considering finally getting rid of daylight savings time.
Yeah, they keep talking about that over here. They're considering getting rid of daylight savings time or keeping it on daylight savings time. I hear one or the other. It's always like.
Yeah, from what I understand, once this switches this weekend, it's supposed to be the last time it switches, and we're on that particular time.
Okay, I haven't heard that, but we'll see.
Again, it always changes every few weeks or every year about this time. Twice a year, they always talk about it.
Well, I think it takes an act of Congress to actually make it stop changing. Because it took an act of Congress to change it. It'll take an act of Congress to make it stop changing. I don't know if they passed it or not. I have no idea. I just know I've heard of it.
The states get to decide at which time zone they're in, right?
Apparently.
Yeah, there's something like that. Because I know, like, Detroit is in the Eastern time zone. It's like the Eastern time zone goes up, Detroit, and then up.
Right, because I saw a map and it cut Nevada in half when it comes to being on Pacific time or Rockies time.
Good evening, Tit Goblin and King's Poet.
Or maybe you could get the worst thing, which would be that the 48 contiguous states would be all up at the same time. And then we have people waking up at 3 a.m.
And in this week's comic book news, I saw some cartoonist I'd never heard of died. I think she was like Norwegian or something. 27 years old. I think she did like kids, young adult comics, which were hits over in Europe and had just come over to the U.S. And it was like cancer got her at 27. I was like, whoa.
Oh, wow. That's bad. Do you remember her name?
Something. I can't remember her name for the life of me. It was on Comic Beat, I think it was. I think that's where I saw a link to it, but I was like, whoa, young. I hate when I discover a new cartoonist just as they die. That's that's never any good.
I can't surf the internet yet.
Many.
My computer is still restart. I did a restart before we went on air, and things are still, I guess, loading.
She's Norwegian. I don't know that many Scandinavian.
I think I could be remembering the country wrong, but I think it was from up there north of Europe. I wish I should have freaking bookmarked. I thought I left it open, but I don't think I did. So now it's all, Now I'm going by memory and can't remember, of course.
Of course.
Of course. Can't remember the name of the book. Well, let me go to my history and see if it's in there. History. Nope. Show full history. Oh well. Another slow
That's not a good idea.
There were only 2 comics on my pull list this week. First time that has happened in a long, long time. So I ended up pulling up 4 first issues that came out this week. It amazes me when people always say, "Oh, there's nothing to buy. Modern comics suck." I'm like, I found 4 first issues to buy that just came out this week. I'm like, What do you mean there's nothing to buy? And only one of them is making my pull list, but they were all enjoyable. And did you guys see that Marvel is coming out with a new imprint? That's one thing I saw just before we went on. Marvel is coming out with a 20th Century Fox imprint. Which is going to have, since Disney bought Fox or some part of Fox, they've been putting out the Alien and the Predator books, and now they're going to be putting out more stuff, but under the 20th Century Fox imprint. Like, okay, there's something I'll never buy.
No, when they do the Aliens versus Wolverine book, because that's that's going to happen. Actually, does Fox own the Predator franchise?
Yes.
I could see that being more of a. I could see that more being a versus Wolverine series.
Wilson is getting some feedback now. What is that? I think
it's because I hit it on mute because my cat was making noise.
I don't know. All of a sudden, I heard a little feedback in one part, but then it goes away. So the new camera is definitely getting let, but it's weird that you'd be getting it on a new camera too.
Yeah,
if there's any, but it's gone away again. We'll see. What was that?
Let me see if I can find a list of properties that Fox owns that we would like to see turned into a Marvel comic.
Do you like any of the Predator or Alien stuff?
No.
No? Yeah, I haven't.
Not really.
I enjoyed it when Dark Horse was doing it. I found it entertaining. It I wouldn't say it answered any questions that I had lingering for watching the movies, but I did enjoy what I read. I
remember I've heard people like the Alien stuff in general from Dark Horse. I only read the little of it that was in Dark Horse Presents, and it was fine, but I think my favorite Aliens thing was the Lee Weeks Superman Aliens. Man, that came out a lot of years ago now.
I enjoyed the one they did with Green Lantern.
Right, I remember you saying that one. You enjoyed that one.
That was a lot of fun because, again, they treated it as a life form that shouldn't be eradicated. So I think their final answer was to put it on that planet that's a Green Lantern.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Mog or Mog.
Yeah, I remember something like that. What was that?
Mogo doesn't socialize.
Yes. He's too big to come to the meetings.
Too big to come to the meetings. But I ended up, after I made that video about the Black Science, that big artist proof edition that I got last week, I ended up pre-ordering from my local comic shop the Black Science compendium. I think 43 issues are in it. It's in a trade. It's paperback, 43 issues for $60. I was like, all right, I'll finally read Black. That's one of those I meant to pick up in trades, but never did. So I'm like, you know what? I'll put an order in for the compendium. So Spawn's been putting out things in that compendium of issues. We get 50 Spawn issues in one soft cover. It's like, whoa. It's a lot of issues.
That is a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I got a couple of hardcover books this week.
Okay.
One, not quite being comic related, but being art related, is Face It by Debbie Harry, the lead singer of Blondie. And I'm only kind of a minor Blondie fan. There's a couple of songs I really like, but I can't really call myself a big Blondie fan. But what got me on this was there was a lot of what turns out to be fan art. I didn't read there's I noticed there's like pictures with pictures with drawings on them. And it was the art that actually sold me. That, and it was less than $10 on Amazon.
Yep,
But there's lots of once again, some of the worst binding I've seen. It's like it's snap. How is this? How is there no arch in this? And it's like it looks like it's sewn. I don't know what kind of glues, and the spine isn't attached to the spine on the inside. So I have no idea why the book doesn't arch when you open it up like a spine should, like have an arch right there, because it doesn't even open.
Are these one of the books that are printed by Amazon?
No. This is who did this book? An imprint of William Morrow. Is William Morrow an ad agency? No.
I thought they were.
Yeah.
They used to do the handle the big cigarettes corporation advertisements back in the day.
Oh, and this reminds me, there's a big book there. I didn't know this until I saw this book. That's Deborah Harry, painted by H.R. Giger, the alien artist. And there's a book coming out about it either this spring or a photo book. Deborah Harry's husband, Chris Stein, he's also was in Blondie. He was, I think, the lead guitarist. And he has been a photographer. He's taken pictures his whole rock and roll career. So there's a book coming out of Chris Stein's, I think it's Chris Stein's photos of the photo shoot they did with H.R. Giger, who painted Deborah Harry. I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Like $75 though, so we'll have to see.
Right.
Good evening, Comic Crack. And I only like the musician life thing when they really let all the dirt out. I read the book on the Heartbreakers, Johnny Thunders, and the best story was doing heroin with the Thunders. Yeah. I like I said, I got this mostly for the pictures, but I'll read it. It's got pictures of Deborah Harry in there too. But man, it's really a struggle to keep this book open. It is just so poorly bound. I'm like, how do you make your binding that stiff? And there's it's a nicely designed book. If only you could open it. Oh, there's some more. And I like this stuff. This, I believe, is Blondie fan art.
Okay.
So I think that stuff is cool. So this is, one book I picked up. And the other book I picked up is comic related. And let's see. Picked up the giant Eddie Candle omnibus today. He's eating in a bunch of Zipatone on the omnibuses. Oh, they are. I have the is it the Bacchus Eddie Campbell omnibus you got, or is it a different one? Because I've got the first Eddie Campbell Bacchus omnibus, but not the second. Or is that a third one even? But Eddie Campbell's stuff is weird. Like I have this Eddie Campbell book, Alec, I think was the name of it. ALEC. He did it. I think I got it in the 90s. It's been a while. But there's a lot of Zipatone in it, so it's pre-digital age. But it looks like he was working in a studio with other artists who were using Zipatone, and he took their scraps. Because he's got like little pieces of Zipatone everywhere, and sometimes it's like barely even cut to the shape. And I'm like, what? Is he just? He's just using scraps of Zipatone in this. The Years Have Pants. Ah, okay. That's a new one. I don't know of that one. Yeah, oh, it's the Alec one. Yeah, I have the it's not an omnibus, it's just an Alec collection. I don't know how many years ago it was put out. But like the Bacchus one is an omnibus. Have you guys read any Eddie Campbell stuff?
Not yet.
No, I have not.
I was more interested in reading Alec than Bacchus.
Yeah. And what amazed me, if you own a business and agreed up with inflation, okay.
Yeah, this looks like a what?
Let's just block that user. Don't know who that is.
Okay.
But I've talked about it before. What is that? Peter Cannon, the Kieran Gillen and Peter Snarsgaard. What is his name? I can't remember his name all of a sudden. Their book that I said is my favorite Watchman thing. About I've talked about it before about the Peter Cannon is the Ozymandias character in Watchmen, and in this he's like tracking Ozymandias as he takes out alternate worlds. One of the alternate worlds that Ozymandias takes out that Peter Cannon goes to is the world of Alec. So it was like all of a sudden Peter's, what is his name? Snarsgaard? I can't remember. The whole issue, one issue like took place in black and white, drawn like Eddie Campbell drew Alec in the 90s, and Alec is there as his world slowly disappears. And I'm like, nobody is going to get this reference but me. He dedicated an entire issue to Eddie Campbell's Alec.
Peter Sneiberg.
Yes.
Sneiberg.
That's it.
I remember him from Books of Magic.
Oh, that one came out in 2009.
Back in the day.
Yeah, he's doing, what is he doing now that I'm reading? Oh, because I've been picking up his stuff since Peter Cannon. I can't remember which one he's doing. He's reading one of my regular pull list books. I can't remember which one right now. But the other book I got has been on my Amazon wish list since 2004. 19 years it's been on my Amazon wish list. And I finally got it. And I got a copy for under $10 shipped. And it's a Bernie Krigstein book. Bernie Krigstein, who's writing this? Greg Sandowski. Fantagraphics published it. It came out in 2002. Just got it today. I even forgot I ordered it because I ordered it, from a used bookstore. And it came today. I'm like, what is this? I have no idea. I don't remember. I was like, oh, that's right. I ordered this. But for those of you who don't know Bernie Krigstein, you will know his one EC story, The Master Race. Let me see if that's in here. Right, no, it's in here. Let me see where it is. There we go. This is, let me go solo so I can show it to you. This is, I think, is one of the last stories he did for EC. And from what I've read recently, when the original art sold to the Holocaust Museum in I forget where it is. It's in Poland. For like the original art, the complete story sold for like $500,000. And this is also, besides being famous for being a masterful 8-page or 6-page piece of storytelling, is one of the first pop culture things to deal with the Holocaust. In the 50s, I guess it just didn't happen. But this is a wonderful book. I think there's an intro by his daughter, or Natalie Krigstein. I think that's his daughter. Oh, this is a beautiful piece. I love this right here. Once again, let me go big to show it to you. Love that piece right there of that guy just standing there. But Krigstein was a guy who quit comics in the late 50s and was an illustrator and a painter, but he didn't do any comics after when he left EC. But you can even see why he felt sort of hemmed in by EC. Let me show you this. EC would have their comics lettered first. So all this lettering was already there when he started drawing. So he, instead of drawing one panel, he'd break his one panel up into 3 panels so he could tell a story better. But he didn't have like the freedom in that EC stuff to lay out his own panels because it was already lettered and the panel borders were drawn before he got it. But you can see like he was always playing with paneling and time. There's even clocks in that one playing with time. But there's an overview. It's also got his fine artwork. Let me see if I can get some of that. Self-portrait at the easel, 1942. And let's see what else we have here. He's just done a ton of things. There's a nice draw. Oh, Ed Murr's piece is in here. There's a couple of paintings from 54. So this is at the same time he was doing that EC stuff. And I'm guessing he was heavily influenced by Cezanne. Because I think the name of his daughter's intro is like, thank goodness for Cezanne. God bless Cezanne. It's the name of the intro. So I'm guessing he was heavily influenced by him. But it looks like he also did some pictures in the war. Luxembourg. I guess I haven't read this because I just got it today. But there's a... Whoops, wrong person. Hey.
Wrong person.
Oh, some Tala smiling faces there. Whoops. Here's a nice drawing of somewhere near Luxembourg. And there's a study of Jesus. So there's a lot of cool stuff in this. Including, I think I showed this. No, sorry. I think I've shown this another time. This is a stat. I think I showed this before of a illustration he did for a book cover. And that is also, I think Ed Murr sent them when they made this. I think it sent them a scan of it because it's in here too. Let's see. Yeah, here's a section with his book covers, and there's that piece down there. Mm-hmm. So, really nice book. I look forward to looking through it, and I'll have to make a video of it.
That looks great. It's like I mentioned once, you can tell Frank Miller used to lift from Bernie Krigstein.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this cover right here looks like Frank Miller, lifted from it. Looks like something that would influence Frank Miller. But wow, yeah, it's wonderful. And even like when I was doing the video I posted last week looking at this Black Science one, I even said a couple of times there's a few faces in there in this that look by Matteo Scalera that look like Krigstein. I don't know if he, was influenced, if he knows Krigstein or not, but he was certainly taking a similar approach.
Well, let me see how old Scalera is.
Yeah, that face right there could be Krigstein. Like, I don't know if he actually knows him or is just taking a similar approach. But
He might not, although he's the type of artist that, yeah, he was born in 1982, so
yeah, you never know.
Yeah, most likely he lifted from Frank Miller, not from
Yeah,
Krigstein.
I mean, the reason I know Krigstein is John Romita.
Yeah, because he's one of the guys that never made it to the Silver Age.
Yeah, because Ed Murr, our friend, used to go to John Romita for crits and talk to him. Ed worked at Marvel. And John Romita told him his stuff looked like Krigstein. So Ed, of course, went and looked up Krigstein, which meant I went and looked up Krigstein too. So, that's why that's the older generation filling in the younger generation on who these guys who hadn't been around for years and years were. And at that point, like in the this was the early 90s, and there was, you couldn't even, there were no books on Krigstein. The only place you could find Krigstein in those days was probably those EC hardcovers, because there weren't a ton of reprints of them.
I don't know where I saw his artwork for Master Race, other than I would assume it must have been in a bunch of different the art of comic books type of thing.
Right,
because
right.
I know in one of my early drawings, I did a very similar timing thing that he does in Master Race, where the character
Right.
falls into the subway. I did something similar where I was having the character fall, but instead of having it in each of the panel, I actually made the panel itself fall as well.
Right.
But I remember the influence was from the page from Master Race. But for the life of me, I don't remember where I would have seen that image.
It might have been in the Smithsonian Book of Comics or something like that.
Possibly, very well possible. Because I just remembered is I had to draw a character who was wearing a trench coat, and I had to draw the character. He either got hit or was poisoned, so he fell. And so I decided, okay, I could do something similar to that image, but instead of making the character fall, I also made the panel itself fall. And for some reason, I always had Gil Kane in my mind as well. And I don't know if Gil Kane used to take images from him as well. Because for some reason, in the back of my mind, I connected those two together.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could just very well be the clean line that Gil kind of used to put on his pages.
I watch him on his live stream drinking draws with his drawing crew. He likes Frank Miller a lot, I gather. Is that Matteo Scalero? He must be. He must like Frank Miller a lot. Yeah.
In the meantime, I've looked up some 20th Century Fox TV properties that could make for some interesting comics.
What do you got?
And they are Manimal and Automan.
Manimal did make a comeback for a few episodes of Night Mask. I think it was. There was a couple of episodes of that they pulled from I think was it the Malibu universe when they went into like superhero stuff. There was one of them that became a TV show, and they brought Man back in that TV show.
But the advantage of doing Manimal in comics, and that now you can actually show the transformation because you don't have to spend money on special effects.
Right, which was usually on that was him looking like he was sweating and then hiding his fingers like that, and then that was it. And then he changed into the Panther or the Eagle or whatever they did turn into.
Yeah. So I think we should start making some noise. We want Marvel's new Fox imprint to do a Manimal comic. Although I also see the potential here for a very interesting crossover between two different shows that I just thought up, because Fox apparently produced what was the name of this thing? The Time Tunnel. a short-lived science fiction series, and MASH, and they also did MASH. So I want to see a crossover between the Time Tunnel and MASH, so that they can finally come up with an explanation on why Radar was reading an Avengers comic during the Korean War.
If I learned anything from Hollywood, I was asked about the movie Catch Me If You Can. And one of the Marvel lawyers came up and was like, what comic books were out during this year to this year, which is in the movie. And it was like, well, we put out these books, that books, or whatever, because I think they wanted to use one of his alias being Peter Parker. And then at the end, after I did all the little bit of homework and gave them some information, at the end, they end up going with DC characters altogether instead. And they he ended up using Barry Allen as one of the aliases. And when you look, it's like, those are the wrong comic books on the rack. They are the wrong years. And it was like, because the kid would have read comics, but when that was a kid, it probably would have been the previous Flash, not the Silver Age Flash. But again, it's like one of those things, like only comic geeks are going to realize that's incorrect. But I know exactly which issue you're talking about. I remember the covers. It's the cover with I think the wedding of Janet Van Dyne and Yellow Jack on that particular cover. And it's like, that's not the right time period.
Oh, another show that would make for a good comic if they brought it back, Alien Nation. There was a comic book. DC made one.
Put it out,
but if they want to bring it back, they should do one. What about Doogie Howser, MD? Do we want a comic with that?
I don't know. Did medical procedure comics work well? How did Night Nurse last?
Is the Big Bang Theory Fox or not?
No,
I think it's CBS.
Yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, true.
Sometimes one channel produces it and it goes.
Yeah, all the CBS stuff is on Fox in Europe.
Yeah.
Here's something else that it could make a comic of, at least a one-shot anthology in living color. That would make for a humor one-shot with different short
Fireman
stories.
Ed. Fireman Ed. A new genre, underage medical procedural gay romance. What? Huh?
Ooh, Silk Stockings.
Silk Stockings.
A Silk Stockings comic. Let's do it.
The Catch Me If You Can book is total fiction. Okay. You mean, was that supposed to be someone's memoir? Catch Me
It
If
was
You
not
Can?
their memoir. It's supposed to be their life story, but allegedly no one ever asked the guy any information. So they kind of made it all up. So Catch Me If You Can. And there was another show that was very similar to it, which was about a con man, basically, and his life story. And they made several movies and TV shows based on it, but never actually asked him what really happened and stuff like that. So it's the whole the guy who is the criminal becomes an FBI informant and kind of a partner. And then it bounces off that genre of the FBI guy and then the cop and the superpowered person. Not necessarily superpowered, but special person whose brain is smarter than everyone else's. So you have Bones is like that, where you have a cop and someone with an extra type of thing. So that was that pretty much kind of like created its own genre.
You're getting interference again. I wonder what that is. Because if it's not the mic, what could be causing interference on his sound? I have no idea.
I don't know if it's because of movement and the camera's trying to focus.
No, I don't think it's it because you've been getting the same interference with your other mic, so it has to do something. I would think it has something to do with the hardware or I don't know. I don't know what could make interference on sound.
I don't have anything
unless it's like that's inside the computer.
That's a possibility. I don't know.
I don't know.
The computer's not making any noise.
Usually when there's interference coming over the line, it's from what is it? The mic plug-in junk. Ah, okay. There could be your mic jack needs to be cleaned. Was making money doing lectures. Once the press started following up, they found large holes in his story. The Catch Me If You Can guy.
Oh, okay.
How do you clean a mic jack? With alcohol and a Q-tip? Rubbing alcohol?
I don't know, because it's the mic itself, or the mic's in the camera, and the camera is USB.
Oh, it's USB. Yeah, so it won't be a mic jack. Maybe it's the USB jack. Is there another USB jack?
I could put it into another one.
Try plugging it into another one. See what happens.
All right. We'll be disappearing for a while, because once I unplug it.
All right. Good evening,
be gone.
Fellow crime fighters. Let's just see if it's another plugging it into another USB jack does anything. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the jack. Who knows?
If it's not working, I just blow on them. If it's got a speck of dust.
The old blow on your Nintendo cartridge that apparently did nothing, but sometimes got spit on it.
That's Nintendo's fault.
Yeah. I once I think I bought a used Game Boy cartridge, and it wasn't working. And usually what you use to clean those contacts was, isopropyl rubbing alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so I brought it in, I think I bought it in Manhattan at the A&S, there was at the A&S mall in Midtown we used to go to when we had lunchtime, sometimes in Marble. And I brought it back there saying, this isn't working. He's like, oh, let me clean it out. He's like, and he got one. Have you ever seen they used to have video game cleaning kits, which cost like $10. And it had this tiny little bottle in there. And he's like, oh, never use alcohol. You always have to use this stuff. I'm like, let me see that bottle. And I looked at it and I'm like, see what it says right there, ingredients? 90% alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. He's like, oh. Never use alcohol. Yeah, that's the stuff they give you in the cleaning kit.
Yeah, you have to use this special alcohol that only we sell.
Right. That always got me. Yeah, sometimes cables get damaged inside the insulation. Yeah, but this has been doing it with his, he just got a new camera that he's using the mic for. So we know it's not the case. He's been getting the same interference with different mics over the last few weeks. So that's what's so strange. So it's not the actual hardware he's using, and since it's different cables, unless he's got I don't know if he's using a USB hub or something, and there's cables going from the hub to who knows how he has it set up. I don't. But when he pops back on, we'll see what he's got there. Bernie Krigstein. A retrospective of one of the great artists of the 20th century, who began his career as one of the most innovative comic book creators of his generation. This first volume traces Bernie Krigstein's life and career from his early years as a painter through his groundbreaking period at EC Comics. Includes 5 digitally restored landmark stories newly recovered by Marie Severin. I wonder if there was ever another volume. As it says, this is the first volume. I don't think there was ever a volume 2, but I can't swear to it. Here's Wilson again. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How does it
Right.
sound now?
Better.
No interference so far.
All right. I plugged it directly into the computer instead of the USB.
Oh, it may have been a hub.
Yeah, I had it in the hub.
Okay,
So-
that could be causing interference. One of your wires could be wrong, as Scott says. Sometimes the cable gets damaged. Yeah. In the old days, we had trouble with the computer recording and grounding your computer. Faulty equipment. It must have been the hub. Would pick up an AC current noise of his grounding your. Yeah. I'm guessing it was that hub.
All right. Hopefully this will
You know,
work.
I can know from that EC story that Kriegstein probably would have worked well with Stan Lee's not writing style.
Oh yeah,
Stan would
definitely.
just draw whatever you want, and
He could
What-
he could do his own layouts.
yeah. What Kriegstein might not have liked was the same reason that Wally Wood didn't stay.
Right.
I'm getting not paid to write.
Right. But it was like it was those. If you ever, I never knew that before. I read it only in the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, that all of those EC stories were lettered first. So it's like, and the artist had to draw around the lettering.
Very odd.
Very odd. Huh. Strange stuff.
I mean, in daily newspapers, journalists already know before the event how much they're going to write about it, because the layouts are done before any writing is done.
We need 1,000 words on this. We need 4,000 words on that.
Yeah. Then
you
you
write by
then you have
number
to
of
fight.
words.
Yeah, then you can fight for space, and if the editor agrees with you, you get it. Most likely, the editor doesn't agree with you, especially if it's later during the day and they have to have that page done.
Let's see.
So
One of the first comics.
Stop the presses. It doesn't actually work.
Wilson can yell that with his new Perry White action figure.
Great figures.
16 moved up the illustration. Money wise, yeah. Rogue Sun. We're up for issue 11 with this one. And I think my best description of this is what if Flash Thompson, instead of Peter Parker, became the superhero? He inherited this superhero identity from his estranged father who just died, this teenager. And he's one of the, he's got friends at school, but he's also kind of a jerk. And he just got thrown into this world of being a superhero. And the artist also likes to turn some pages sideways sometimes. They're in this other realm, so the pages are sideways. But it's a solid superhero book. It's in the same universe as Radiant Black, but there's really no crossover between them. It's Rogue Sun is telling its own story, and there's lots of magic and mythical creatures and MacGuffin quests he's got to go on, and meanwhile he's a jerky teen too. But good solid superhero stuff. Who does this one? Ryan Parrott is the writer. Abel is the artist. Natalia Marquez is the colorist. Becca Carey is the letterer. And Natalia has an accent over the second A. What does that mean? An accent?
It means that it's the stressed syllable.
Natalia?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Natalia. Ah. So I usually don't see that name spelled with any kind of accent. So.
In Portuguese, it is.
Okay. Is Marquez a Portuguese name? Ques?
Yeah. If it ends in S, it's Portuguese.
It has an S, not a Z. Marquez.
Is she Brazilian?
But I've been enjoying this. Like I said, good, solid superhero book.
She is Brazilian. Campinas.
She's Brazilian?
Yes. So that explains why she has a Portuguese language name.
There you go. There you go. Brazilian. There's a lot of Brazilians in comics. Well, there's a lot of people from all over the world in comics these days. The internet has done that. Mm-hmm.
There's even a few Brazilians working in the French market. The first Brazilian to go to the French market is called Leo. And back in the 1960s, he was part of a communist terrorist brigade in Brazil. So, and he immigrated to France and became a commercial artist.
Where's Matteo Scalera from?
Italy. He's from
Italy.
Milan.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I hadn't thought about it before this moment. Let's see the other one. The other one that was in my poll list is, of course, Spawn. Who doesn't love it when a new issue of Spawn comes out? Still only $2.99. So I can still buy it. Oh, once again, it's Rory McConville is writing it with additional script by Todd McFarlane. And I gotta say, I'm guessing the additional script was the explanatory stuff. Sometimes they're just explaining to you what's going on. Like Dead Zones explains what Dead Zone. I got to believe that like McFarlane came up with all that stuff and likes explaining it. So when like the explanation stuff, because what is it? Cagliostro, who was the king of hell and then has been gone, I guess, for a long time. I remember him from the early issues of Spawn, but I guess they killed him off at one point. And he's back, and he was looking for a way into hell so he can be king of hell again. But it turns out that 500 years have passed in hell. And there's all this explanation of what's going on. And I'm like, I bet McFarlane wrote that stuff. All the world building explanation stuff. But it's solid. I think Rory McConville and Carlo Barberi, the artist, do a nice, solid job with Spawn. It's much, much better than when Todd McFarlane was writing.
That's not too hard.
You're right. That is not too hard. Like when I first started reading this, I don't know, issue 215 or whenever it was, and Todd McFarlane was writing it then, and it was like, he doesn't know, like, he's been writing that book for 20 something years, and he doesn't know like stuff you should know in English 101, like freshman level English class. Don't use the same word in the same sentence. And he didn't know that. I was like, how can you have been writing for 20 something years and not learn that?
He's probably one of those guys that I never read anything because I don't want it to influence my writing.
Could be. Who knows? Who knows?
That's the one thing that the most things you have to practice doing it to get good. Writing, you get better in writing by reading, not by writing.
Yeah, I can understand that because writers always read. You know, whenever you see like a blog or something by a writer, they're telling you what they read too. I never thought about that before. That's interesting. You do get better at writing by reading. You don't get better at drawing by looking at drawing. You got to do it and look at drawing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get better at drawing by looking, but you can't just look at it. You have to kind of analyze it and figure out how they're doing it and then do that. Yeah. I think that's different than reading.
Yeah, breaking it down and then mimicking it, and then when you draw, you realize where the person went with it.
Yeah. So you getting interference again? Talk some more, Wilson. Let me hear. I'm like, how can he be getting interference still?
I am not too sure. I'm not running anything at the moment. Most of my windows are closed, and I have restarted the computer. At that particular time, I get look something up. So maybe it's interference between the programs.
I don't think there's such a thing as interference between the programs. I mean, I don't know. It's just so strange.
Right.
Good evening, Mind the Comics.
Welcome.
I've taken lots of
Maybe-
true stories from people, and it is so difficult to pull out the character growth, etc. They get naturally in fiction.
Yeah, because in real life, people don't change that much.
I also heard once again I learned things by watching TikToks, and they were talking about I was talking about why is there so much violence in stories or something like that. And he said something interesting that I'd never heard or thought of before. It's that when stories were passed down by oral tradition, there was all sorts of stories, and usually it was the elders who remembered the stories and taught them to younger people. And there were stories for all sorts of things, so that if there was, somebody going through some guy going through a midlife crisis, the village storyteller can tell him a story about that, about somebody else going through a midlife crisis, this and that. There were stories for all different stuff. And the stories that would, like, mostly sort of the adventure stories with violence in them, were for young men. They were for young men to kind of to teach them to kind of be heroic, to go out there and be heroic and stop bothering your sister. That's what he said. So this sort of stories we have in violence and adventure in them are for young men to learn to do sort of something positive with the time and energy they have. But they're also like the sugary sweets of stories, because they're the exciting ones and people like them. So it's like mostly all that has survived in our modern media has been those stories of violence and adventure with action in them that are made for young men. And the story, if you're, a woman having a midlife crisis, there's not elders telling you stories about going through a midlife crisis. And they don't make many movies or TV. They make some, but they don't make many. Most movies and TV shows and even comic books where we get our stories are those young men adventure stories. I found that interesting. I'd never heard that before.
Interesting.
Got me the idea, and that's what when he said about character, the hero's journey is like the most common story now, and every story we tell needs a character arc, where the character is one way here and another way here at the end, and that wasn't how storytelling always went, but that's the storytelling we have left over. It's like, I think do you guys know the movie The Big Lebowski?
Yep.
Yes.
I think one of the big reasons The Big Lebowski resonates with a lot of people is that he has no character arc. One of the main points of The Big Lebowski is that everybody is the hero of their own story, but that doesn't mean you have to have a story arc. You have to have a heroic struggle and story, because he was exactly the same at the end as he was at the beginning. The dude abides. And I think on sort of a unconscious level, that really resonated with people, because every other, movie we watch says you have to be better at the end of the movie than you were at the beginning. And that's just not how life is. You're not better at the end of the year than you were at the beginning of the year. We're the Big Lebowski. We're not Luke Skywalker. So I think that was a story that resonated with people just because of that. But everyone has else had a story arc. Yeah, in the Big Lebowski they did, but he didn't. The dude abided. Hello, Whit Stillman maniacs. How you doing?
Well, the other characters had a story arc, but the story arc for every one of them was a MacGuffin. They didn't actually change.
Yeah. They weren't really any different at the end, except one guy died.
Yeah,
That made him different.
only Donnie.
It was different.
But nobody else changed. Not Lebowski's daughter. Well, she was impregnated, according to the narrator.
Not
But
Bunny.
Bunny, yeah, but
Not
no,
the
Bunny
other
was
Lebowski.
no, Bunny was the mistress. She
Yeah, Bunny
pretended
was
she
the
was
one
kidnapped.
who.
She was kidnapped.
Right.
She was pretending she was kidnapped by Germans.
You're right. Nobody.
And
I think that resonated. The idea that even if you're not on a heroic journey, you're still the hero of your own story, and it's okay to not be the prime mover in the world. Because also the Big Lebowski was not the prime. He was caught up in the plot. He wasn't the prime mover of anything in that movie. He was just kind of caught up in it, just going along with the flow because other people were moving him around.
Walter probably thought he was the hero of the story, even though he was just annoying.
But that's right. I think another one that kind of goes like that. One of the reasons I like it is it's a good life if you don't weaken. The one by Seth, who there's no real. It's about him looking for a cartoonist, and people were actually upset when they found out the cartoonist he was looking for wasn't real. And by the end of it, he really didn't find out much about the guy, except the guy kind of had a life and lived it and was a cartoonist for a little while and then went off and did something different. So there was no big lesson for him to learn in trying to track down this cartoonist Kalo. And I think that's another rare one. Like, well, the one he also did, Clyde Fans, is an old man telling you his life story. And there's no arcs. There's no lessons to be learned. It's just him telling stories about working for his family fan company and his relationship with his brother. So it's like those are sort of outliers that I really like. But I think one of the reasons I really like them is they're not the hero's journey. It's that different type of storytelling that there's not a ton of in our culture, in our pop culture, I should say. It's probably out there somewhere.
There are probably a few. I can't think of any. I'm trying to think of any stories that I read that would have been like that, and there hasn't really been. But I tend to stay with the superhero type stuff.
Right.
Whenever I go to independent stuff, I don't vary it all that much. So I'm trying to think if there's anything that I would have read that would have been a little different.
Yeah, Harvey Pekar was like, I think slice of life in general is that kind of just examining little parts of life, and then once again no arc from beginning to end. Yeah, Pekar, yeah, great example. But they're rare, those, because especially since superheroes are dominated by. Comics are dominated by superheroes, which is young man adventure stories. So that's finding stuff that's not that. Peter Baggs, Buddy Bradley stuff. I think early on, that could kind of be seen as the funny stuff as young man adventure stories. Because it's Buddy Bradley out in Seattle having a series of adventures. He's not necessarily learning lessons, but he's different from beginning to end. But as the series goes on, and it just becomes the story of his life, and even Peter Bagg has acknowledged that he refers to those early issues as back when hate was cool. Because when he ceased having those adventures, a lot of people ceased liking it. Most of our lives are more about endurance and incremental achievements. Exactly. Small there's a lot. There was a movie in the 80s on HBO, made for HBO, called Gulag. And it was about, I think it was a famous writer, maybe, life in a Soviet gulag. And they had this one line in it that always ran in the previews that said, do your limbs still work? Does your mind still work? These are victories. And that goes through my head some days. I'm like, I'm feeling down. I'm like, nothing's going away. And then I'm like, that line from Gulag comes through my head. And I'm like, man, I don't think I'm in a gulag. I don't think it's that bad. Do your limbs still work? Does your mind still work? These are victories. The G.G. Allen book the first thing I did was put together was to decide on what his character arc was. It was really simple, like A Star is Born. Yeah. Well, sometimes, even a small character arc can get you going, can get you on that line from beginning to end.
Mm.
But once again, that's how we tell stories. Scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. Scene 1, intro. Scene 2, exciting incident. Scene 3, resolution. Whatever it is, there's a three act. Pardon me, not 3 scene. A 3-act structure that gets used in everything. So that's kind of when I'm trying to think of what else. Because I've got more stuff than normal that doesn't I've got all my Rick Geary Treasure of Victorian Murder and Treasure of 20th Century Murder stuff over there. And I don't think true crimes, it's like you have to find the story within true crime, but it's not usually, there's not usually, a character arc in true crime. It's more like the acts are before the murder, and after the murder. So that's kind of a different thing too. But it's still 3 acts.
Mm-hmm. Huh. I can't think of a series like the movie Ghost World, which is based on a comic. I never read the comic.
I read the comic.
I only watched the movie, I think, once because I just did not like it because it did nothing for me. That there was, as far as I'm aware of, there was no growth in the characters, and I think it was because it was so slice of life. There was nothing going on for me in it at all, and the only reason why I watched it was because I knew it was connected to a comic. So I was like, oh, okay, so this is a comic-based thing. Let me watch it. And it's like, it did. I couldn't even remember. I couldn't even tell you what went on in it. There was anything important. And it was one of those, what really happened at the end type of thing. And it put me so much off that I never even bothered to look up the comic. Because it was like,
the comic is Daniel Clowes. So of course I like it. Ghost World is a classic adolescent to adult story. That's what it is. It's and here's the sort of hidden subtext of Ghost World that when I learned helped me understand it more. Both characters in Ghost World are Dan Clowes. And it's his Jewish half and his waspish half. And it's the two of him as an adolescent with the two halves of his personality, the two sort of sides of his personality, the two cultures of his personality sort of vying with each other. That's the subtext of it. The text of it is, of course, these two high school friends who are both weirdos and outcasts figuring out what they like I said, classic adolescent to adult story, figuring out who they're going to be as adults. And the waspish half, what's her name? Scarlett Johansson is growing into somebody who can fit in. And Enid, the other half, the Jewish half, is not growing into somebody who can fit in. So that's why I think the movie ended differently than I think in the comic. There was kind of a what was at the end of this, but I think at the comic Enid took a bus out of town to kind of fight because she knew there was nothing for her in her hometown. I think that was it. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't read it in a couple of years. But the ending, I think, was always purposely a little ambiguous because there was a whole thing in the comic which was actually explicit in the comic. I think it went, there was always somebody waiting at a bus stop, but they closed down that bus route years ago. So the person waiting at this bus stop was waiting for a bus that would never come. And as they would pass by, they're like, why is that person always waiting for a bus that would never come? And I think at the end, Enid was waiting at that bus stop and the bus came and she got on it. I don't remember if that's how the movie ended.
I think it did. I think she gets on the bus, and then I remember reading or someone talking about it years later, stating that because the bus showed up, it meant she died. And it was like,
no,
okay.
I don't think she died. That meant she went on to be an adult.
Okay.
She was leaving her childhood behind and going on to be. I don't know what it meant for Dan Clowes. If those were his two halves, it was like. But it's like, the Scarlett Johansson half that could fit in went to. And also in the comic, the Steve Buscemi character doesn't exist.
Okay.
They put him in the movie, but he doesn't exist in the comic, so that makes it complete. And then it's really those two halves, the two characters, sort of vying for each other. And what's interesting too? I recently, just a couple weeks ago, I don't know if I mentioned this, I rewatched another Dan Clowes, Terry, who is the director? Zweibig, is that his name?
I don't know.
Movie, Art School Confidential.
I heard about that. I heard good things about that, but I never watched it.
The original comic was in 8-ball. I think it was 5 pages. And when it came out in the early 90s, it was like a classic. Everybody in the bullpen, of course, who went to art school loved it. He's the idea, Art School Confidential. He's going to blow the lid off the biggest scam of the 20th century, which is art school. And he goes through all the characters and cliches that are in art school. What do I remember? That's where I always got the. Matter of fact, I was telling one of my students this, the old tampon in a teacup trick, which is a legitimate trick. That's where you haven't done your school project, so you want to. You take two things that have nothing to do with each other and you put them together, a tampon in a teacup, and you can talk for half an hour about that in class. That's just in. From then on in, it was whenever we see that, we're like, the old tampon in a teacup trick. And the guy who's what was that?
We had art in communication class in the second semester or first year, second year, and my my group did the work on Dadaism. So we just made stuff up.
They invented the tampon and the teacup trick.
Yeah. It was kind of appropriate because all of us had been gone out the previous night and a few of my colleagues did the presentation with sunglasses at 9 a.m. They were just that wasted.
But like, I have some I have some of the art school confidential like panels memorized because we talked about them so much. They're in my mind. Like there was one I still remember. He's talking about women that hooking up with women at art school or whatever, and um, the one was like beautiful women like are all messed up. I can't sleep with you anymore because I want to throw myself into my pottery or something like that. And then it's like, and the ugly art school women don't even get me started. And he's got this woman looking at him, and like Iggy Pop is playing in the background, and she's going, now she's saying to the guy, now I want to be your dog. And you see the guy saying back to her, you in what army? And then like a caption that next to that balloon says, actual statement by quick-witted young Dan Klaus. You in what army? But it's just like, and then they go on to describe certain characters like in art school, like the guy whose solution to every problem is a barbarian painting. The teachers who are only there to try to hook up with the students, things like that. It was just like 5 pages that was, if you'd gone to art school in the 80s, would be very funny. But then the movie, I saw it the first time and was very disappointed because though the comic strip was a classic to us who all knew it and loved it in the early 90s, it was 5 pages. How do you make a movie out of 5 pages? They didn't. They did those 5 pages in the first 10 minutes and then made a movie about art school where there was a strangler and this one guy who didn't fit into this artist trying to fit in and not being able to fit in. It was kind of half teen trying to fit in at art school. And then at the end, it turned really dark because it was all about this kid who was supposedly a normal sort of illustration guy, but nobody liked his work. They liked all the weirdo art students' work. So he was all upset by that. And to give away the ending of a 20-year-old movie, I will. Like I said, in the background of this story, there's some sort of mad strangler going around killing people. So circumstances happen. You have to see the movie. He gets mistaken for the mad strangler. Actually gets arrested and thrown in jail for it. I'm not sure if they convicted him or not at the end. But because of that, he became famous. So now everybody wanted to show his art. So he became a famous artist, but he has to stay in jail to be a famous artist. That's his hook. Like it went really dark at the end with that. And he got and through it he was trying to get the girl he liked, but she wasn't really into him. Once he got thrown in jail, she was into him. So he got everything he could wish for. All he had to do was be mistaken for the strangler. So I actually liked it this time around. It's still not great, but I at least enjoyed it. But I probably liked it because I had some distance from my expectations of it being like that 5-page brilliant comic. So, but Art School Confidential, check it out sometime if you want a mildly amusing movie about art school. And they didn't even mention the tampon and the teacup trick in the movie either. That was disappointing because that's such a great name.
Right.
Nice and alliterative.
It should be a band.
Yeah, everything should be. So many bands. Mm-hmm. So many good band names.
Tampon in a teacup.
I mean, the album cover is right there.
Let's see. I got 4 first issues this week. Here's the first one. Emma Kubert's Stone Heart.
Yeah, Emma just joined TikTok recently.
She's one of Joe Kubert's grandchildren. And I think she's not the daughter of the 2 Kuberts who draw comics. if memory serves. Did Clowes write half the screenplay for? Yeah, I think he wrote part of the screenplay for Ghost World and for Art School Confidential. I think he's been involved writing the screenplays for. He was stealing the Strangler's paintings for his assignments. That was it. He didn't know he was the Strangler, though. He was just some old guy who used to go to the school. That's right. He was stealing the Strangler's paintings for his assignments. That's how they ended up thinking he was the Strangler. But I have to say, I could barely make it through this. The story just didn't interest me. And I found the art to be too sketchy and unfinished. Not that it was bad. And I think, let me show you some of it. Like the big panels were okay. But some of the, you know what it is? I always say, there's a certain type of art that I call just get it done art. Like that dog in the shadow is just unfinished and not thought about. Where once again, some of this stuff is just confusing. It needs to be inked or something. It needs to be thought about more. But like there's some stuff that I call just get it done art. And it's usually in indie books where you and the artist know he has a certain amount of time to get this done in order to pay his bills. And he or she is doing the best they can with that page. And they're getting that page done and they're moving on. This to me is caught somewhere in the middle between comic book art and just get it done art. It's not quite. I don't think she's done enough just get it done art to have things down. This just looks too sketchy and unfinished to me. Like just get it done art doesn't necessarily look sketchy and unfinished because the people who are doing it know how to finish something quickly. And it may be quickly finished, but it's finished. There's a lot of areas in here that just look unfinished and not thought about. Like, what is going on in this panel with that weird unforeshortened hand and just some strange knife going in the fit? It seems like it needed to be in the oven a little longer to finish cooking. But other than, and I don't know if that's why I couldn't get into the story or I couldn't get into the story just because I didn't like it. But it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't for me. Decent cover, though. I like that logo. Nice job with the logo. So logo crediting. And it comes with a map in the front. I'm always happy to see a map. Give me a map. And I'm like, cool, a map. But no second issue of this one for me.
Did she write it as well?
She wrote it as well. She wrote it.
Maybe that's why she felt she didn't need to. Maybe that's why she felt she didn't need to put in more work on the art. She thinks it tells the story.
Yeah, well, obviously, she thought. I just think she needs more work. I mean, she's talented. There's nothing.
It's always good for aspiring professionals in creative jobs to have an editor yelling at them.
It depends on who you are, but when you're young and starting out, maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't even.
This reminds me of that time that one of the times that Frank Sinatra Jr. went on the radio guy.
Howard Stern.
And Howard
He's the radio
Stern.
guy I know.
And Howard Stern told, "What do you think you are? You're only Frank Sinatra Jr." And being Joe Kubert's granddaughter doesn't mean you're Joe Kubert.
Right.
Even
But,
Andy and Adam had to become Andy and Adam.
I'm not telling her not to do this. She's clearly talented.
Sure, but that's not the situation. It's what you described.
You could have used some more thought.
Yeah, so maybe having an editor telling her what to do is a good idea.
Yeah. Maybe somebody like, let me show you this splash page. What's going on?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There's a lot of sketchiness to it, a lot of scribbling. There's not really a lot of defining of forms and letting me as a reader know what's going. Like, what exactly is that, right? Does she have a hammer in her hand? I think it's like, what's going on with that? I think that was something she picked up, but you can't tell from this. It just reads like a first draft.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. It reads like the layouts, the first draft layouts before you go in with the finishes. Sounds like Emma Kumit needs an editor to push her on the art. I don't know what it is. She might not need an editor. She might need more time. I don't know. I have known enough editors who have no clue what they're doing. That when someone says so-and-so needs an editor, I'm a little skeptical because I'm like, which editor? The half of the editors I know which are absolutely clueless, the 10% which I know are really good, the other 40% who are So, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Maybe I think that her editor is at least
Yeah, at least. And I would say, when I would say, why are you putting this out in this like? It's weird because, especially because me personally, give a lot of leeway to just get it done art. I'm okay with just get it done art because I know that it's a small press book and they have to just get it done. It's not their main job. They're getting this done and they're just trying to create. They want to get something out. They're doing the best they can in the time allotted. Mm-hmm. This to me doesn't fall into that category. I'm not sure why. I think it's just because I think less thought was put into it. I have no evidence of that, but that's what I think. Yeah, she needs time to learn her craft. That's what it is. This shows me she hasn't even learned the just get it done craft, let alone the professional comic craft. This is somewhere out there in the no man's land between them, or no woman's land, as the case may be. But yeah, she needs more time to learn her craft. Like I said, clearly not untalented, but no more issues for me. We all need time, that's for sure. You can't learn to draw comics without drawing comics. Who knows? Maybe this was just her learning in her spare time, and someone said, we should publish that. She went, okay.
Very well possible. It's very well possible. Because again, much as I learned before I got into comics, completely different world when you start working in comics. So you got to start somewhere. And with comics, you can only learn drawing comics by drawing comics.
Yeah. And if you got a chance to draw comics and learn at the same time,
yeah,
she'll surprise you in the near future with something exceptional. I hope so. Like I said, she's clearly talented. She comes from a talented family, so I see no reason why she can't learn to draw comics. But that one just didn't do it for me.
Mm-hmm. She at least looks like she's imaginative,
yeah,
which puts her ahead of 90% of the game.
Right.
But yeah, it's the technical aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
And,
learn
and
that
what's
as you
weird,
go. So.
like you've heard me complain about technical aspects in recent weeks, lack of inking and stuff like that, which this certainly, if if they had if they had handed these pages to Tom Palmer, it would have looked like, a professional comic, but it could have used some ink, because I don't think those were inked at all. Those they were going right from whatever drawings she was doing. I hesitate to even call them pencils, because some of them looked like just layouts.
Mhm.
But it's funny. I
Also, is it possible that all the art was done on a computer?
I think it is possible. Let me see. Let me give it. It is so hard to tell these days, because the computer mimics natural media so much. It is 100% possible this was all done on a computer. There's no reason
Mhm.
it couldn't have been.
Sure, but since you can do shortcuts on the computer that you can't do on paper, they kind of don't have an understanding of the process that takes into starting with a sketch and building it up.
Yeah, there's not much building it up in this. It looks
Mhm.
like she's just drawing fast and going with sort of like I said, it looks like a first draft.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of working out of the shapes and
Sure.
forms, and
Yeah, and if
but
you're
then
working on a computer, you do
the
something
big
and it looks neat on the screen.
the big stuff like this face right here, which she clearly
Mhm.
spent more time on, the stuff looks nice.
Mhm.
Like the big stuff like these faces down here are less sketchy and look fine.
Mhm.
But then there's this face where she just goes with this manga gesture of a tongue sticking out that she really doesn't have worked out.
Mhm.
It's just kind of the idea of the tongue sticking out of her sound. And we've seen that in various anime and mangas and stuff. So I don't know. It's just she needs more time. Give her more time to draw her pages. I think that's why we need more anthologies. Oh yeah, I love anthologies. As a matter of fact, there's a new anthology coming out from the Frank Frazetta.
Mhm.
Whatever. Who's putting out that Frazetta stuff? I forget now. But I just sight unseen, I put it on my pull list, because I've enjoyed the two other Frazetta books I've read, Death Dealer, and I can't remember the second one. It's a woman's name, a woman lead character. But I just saw it's going to be like a quarterly anthology of Frazetta inspired stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll buy that anthology since I've liked the other stuff. But yeah, place where people can learn their craft. With digital, it looks good sooner, but lacks that full artistic thing that comes with time. Yeah. It does look good because you can blow it up and shrink it and endlessly work on it. Let's see, what else did I get this week? I actually picked up a Barbarella comic. Nice cover. Who did this one? Girl, nice pin-up girly cover, kind of.
Mhm.
Let's see. I think it's at the end. This cover is by Derek Chew, Chew.
Are
But I
they
was just
doing
kind of
news
like,
stories?
yeah, new stories. I kind of flipped it. It's by the writer is Sarah Hoyt, Hoyt. The artist is Ricardo Bojani, Bogani. Colorist Werner Sanchez. Letterer Carlos N. Manguel. Matt Idelson is the editor. But I flipped it open and thought the art was okay. Let me show you the art. Like I said, I had 2 books on my pull list this week. Lots of panels telling a story. Where's some it bothered me that Dynamite puts ads in the middle of the book. It's like almost all indie publishers put ads in the back, not in the middle of the book. So that actually bothered me.
Do you need a break in storytelling with the ads, or it's just that whole mentality? Oh, the ads are in the back. I don't even have to look at them.
Well, no, I actually look at them when they're in the back. I'm done with the book. I flip through the ads. I say I don't like them interrupting my storytelling.
Right.
Where all of a sudden there's a commercial in the middle of me being into this book. Drives me bonkers.
Okay.
Especially since I don't all Dynamite's the only one who does it out of all the books I can think of. Almost everybody puts the ads in the back, especially if they're all house ads.
Right.
And I actually take the time and look at the stuff in the back because it might be more stuff that, get these nice covers, ads you can look at. So I'm okay with them putting it in the back. There's a not very nice cover. Rocket Man and Rocket Girl. Supposed to be cheesy, but it's a little too cheesy. But though it didn't get on my pull list, it was a pretty good comic. And I had no problem jumping in. It's the first issue of, I don't know, The Center Cannot Hold, issue 1. I don't know how many issues it's going to be. Usually Dynamite does miniseries. But it's like...
And Barbarella's been having miniseries after miniseries for the last 5 years or so.
So it's kind of coming in not in the middle of a story, but in the middle of things going on. And I had no trouble picking it up and following it. So that was good.
No, I wasn't even aware that they were doing a Barbarella series.
It'll go in my bought just for their covers section.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost was thinking about putting it on my pull list because, like I said, it was pretty enjoyable. But the ads in the middle made me go, nah, I don't want to. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, kind of thing.
I interviewed Mike Carey and asked him a question about 5 years ago, and asked him a question about it. He was the first to do an arc with Barbarella at Dynamite. So that was started 5 years ago, I guess.
King Spoet ordered the sea monkeys. I'm not a particular fan of Dynamite. Way too many covers and very little substance. Yeah, they're usually not for me either. But this one was solid comic. I mean, it was a solid B comic. The ads and the fact that I didn't want another solid B comic on my pull list made me go, I'll skip on this one. But it was solid. It was a B.
Right.
Can't complain about it too much. But yeah, you're right. I don't buy much Dynamite. Because they have almost all licensed things. And
I think it's all licensed stuff.
who was it that just started a creator-owned line? It was like Dynamite or someone like that. I can't remember now.
No. I'm just trying to find out who owns Barbarella nowadays.
Oh, there's a name here. Hold on. No, it says created by. It doesn't say who owns it. It says based on the character created by Jean-Claude Forest. Let's see who owns it. The estate of Jean-Claude Forest owns it.
Okay, interesting. Interesting that he's descent. Did he have any kids? I don't know.
Yeah, too many covers usually doesn't bother me though, because I'm not a completist. I'll just pick the cover I like. Like that. The only reason I bought this too was I didn't really like any of the other covers, but I liked this one. So I was like, you know what? I at least like the cover on it. I like the, and then let's see. Another one I got that I don't think is going on my pull list, but was another solid B, was a Mad Cave comic. First Mad Cave I've picked up.
First one I've actually seen.
Yeah. Not a very good cover.
No, I like it.
It's okay. It doesn't particularly grab me. I don't. You know what it is? I think it's the logo that bothers. I mean, the technique that who did this can. There's nothing wrong with the technique. It's just the imagery doesn't thrill me so much, and I think that logo is terrible.
Logo looks like a movie from the early 90s.
Yeah. Let's see. The writer is Mark
Everything about it
London.
screams action movie. Everything about it screams B action movie.
The artist is, let's see, Francesco Archidiacono. 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 He must be Italian. The inker is Mark Dering. Lee Lowridge is the colorist. No, who's the letterer? No letterer? Oh, Russ Rutan. He's down there. They stuck Russ Rutan after all the cover credits. But once again, some solid artwork. Let's see. Again, I'd give this one a solid B. It was enjoyable, and it's also, I think it's about 40 pages and $5.
Okay. I'm taking a look at the artist's Instagram.
Humanoid.
It describes himself as 28 comic book artist, art director, billionaire space archaeologist. Then he has a link to a GoFundMe, probably so he can engage in space archaeology.
Humanoids put out an oversized hardcover of what's her name? Barbarella? Lee is a Savannah friend of mine. Okay. Lee Lowridge. He's a good colorist. I've noticed his name before. But this is a story of the Greek gods. The Greek gods come back to Earth, and Zeus just takes over everything. He's just like, I'm the ruler of Earth now. You humans got nothing to say about it. And they outlaw most tech. And then we get the story of, is it Athena? And everybody on Earth now worships the Greek gods because they're real and can kick your ass. They conquered all of Earth, blew up all the planes and tanks and stuff like that. You went on Springer with me as the John. That was one of their GG things, I think. Yeah, there's a couple of the Greek gods. I think is this Athena? I can't remember. There's Apollo, Aphrodite. No, that's Athena. Who? I forget which Greek god this is supposed to be. Let me see if I can find Artemis. Artemis the hunter. So she's like the one Greek god who wants nothing to do with anybody and is running away. But then Zeus finds out that she got pregnant by a mortal. So he kills her boyfriend, the mortal, and goes to kill her.
Why? It's something that the gods do. They have children with mortals, and then those children
because
kill
Zeus doesn't
hydras
want her to. Because she disobeyed Zeus, that's why.
Okay, seriously, will you people actually, before writing this type of stuff, will you read a bit on mythology? The Greek gods don't have a problem with screwing everything that moves.
Especially Zeus, but Zeus said she couldn't. So she couldn't. But, it's her story mostly. They think they killed her. They didn't. She comes back at the end, and now she's going to hunt them all down. So the plot is nothing new. but it was solidly done. Nothing wrong with it. Just didn't make it onto my pull list. You know. But a good value at $5 for a whole bunch of pages here. Hunt, Kill, Repeat. April 2023, number 2 is available. This one, I like this cover. I might pick up this one. I've been seeing this cover on Instagram. They must have AWA's been doing some Instagram ads. And I like this Don't Spit into the Wind cover. Just kind of that weird armored guy walking around.
Okay.
A nice image. So I might track that one down, but we'll see. Who does it? Stefano Cardacelli and Dan Lee.
I think that the entire country of Italy is now working for the American comics industry.
They might be. Holy cow.
Can't kick a rock and an Italian comics artist pops out.
Especially in the stuff I've been buying. I mean, boy, oh boy. So I have to say, 2 solid Bs that may have made it on my pull list at some other time, but not this time. That's always the problem too. Like with some series, I pick up an issue, it's okay, but my pull list is already full. So it's kind of like, oh well, can't fit another one on. If it was an A, I could fit it on. But if it's a B, I got enough Bs.
But once it makes it on your pull list, you just don't get rid of it. You mentioned that before.
That's
so
right.
So there hasn't been a book that just turned you so off.
Only one in recent years, and I'm so disappointed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Deadly Class. That's the only book that I took off my pull list, and I don't know how long, 10, 20 years. A lot of people in Italy live with their parents, so they can draw American comic books.
Yeah, probably. No, they're living with their parents because they're drawing American comic books.
Like, Deadly Class was one of my favorite comic books. Rick Remender and, oh my God, Craig. Oh, his name just flew out of my head. Great artist, too. Did some great, one of the best chase scenes I've ever seen in a comic. All of a sudden, I can't remember the Deadly Class. Wes Craig, I think that's it, right? Or is he the colorist on it?
I don't know.
Either way, Deadly Class, first of all, it was a comic book I never thought I would like because it's got a dumb premise. It's about a high school for assassins. I read that premise and I was like, no, thank you. But then I picked up the first issue. I didn't order the first issue, but I saw it in the stores and I picked it up. And the artwork reminded, there was some storytelling in it that reminded me of Steranko. It was doing some fancy stuff with the storytelling. I was like, all right, I'm buying this. And I think Wes Craig, he's the artist. Lee Lowridge was the colorist. That's where I know his name from, too. Liked it. I mean, for 2 years, it was in my top 3 books. Then what they did that pissed a lot of people off, but not me, was, like I said, this Marco, I think his name was the lead character in the book. He was an incoming freshman, this street kid. And then in the high school, you had the different cliques. You had, like, the German assassins. You had the Japanese assassins. You had the Chinese assassins. You had the French assassins. You had the New York City assassins. You had the LA, all different, like in high school, there's all different cliques. The mafia assassins. And they all had connections and stuff. And there was this group, I think Marcus may have been his name. And he was one of sort of the ragtag street guys. So there were this sort of gang of outcasts who, made their own clique. And the story went along for a couple of years. Then around issue 20, you found out that all of these sort of street kids, unconnected assassins were the final project for the actual, connected guys. All of a sudden, they're like, okay, for your final project, you have to kill these 8 kids. So they're like, all right, I want an A. So now all of these kids are running away, including the lead character. And he ends up getting killed. And this pissed a lot of people off. They're like, oh, my goodness, they killed the lead character. That's so stupid. I like that guy. But I was okay with it. I was like, that's so cool. They killed And then, since that was the final exam, they had a new group of freshmen come in the next year. So now they're telling the story, except these kids are cannon fodder for the real kid, for the real. So it's like a completely different story now, because you're seeing you're seeing the same story told from a point of view where you now know something you didn't know when they told it the first time. Then about 4 to 6 issues into that story, they brought Marcus, the original guy, back. Because even though he was run through with a sword, someone put double secret herbs on his wound that healed him. And it was just like, one of the things I liked about Deadly Class was that even before that final exam, there were life and death consequences. Because these guys were assassins. And so some of them got killed, some of them killed people. Death was a real threat in it. And one of the things I don't like about Marvel and DC books is that no one can ever die. There's no danger in Marvel and DC books because they're not characters, they're intellectual property. So there's no sense of danger in a Marvel or DC book at all. Even when you hear about the death of Wolverine, you're like, so what? He's going to be back. Not only is he going to be back, he's bringing 4 Wolverines with him. So I was like wowed by the fact that they brought him back, and I stayed on for another half a year. But every time I picked it up, I was just like, I was just flipping through. I was like, there's no sense of danger anymore. There's like all these characters trying to kill each other. And I'm like, well, what does it matter if it killed? They're not really, they can have them not really be dead.
Right.
So even though characters were still dying, I was like, yeah, how do we know he's dead? We don't know he's really dead. They could have put some double secret. When you get run through with a sword and you don't have a surgeon nearby, you die. It doesn't matter what herbs they put on you. You've got internal bleeding. You need a surgeon to sew that stuff up. So it was just like, after that, I stayed on about another 6 issues. And then the book went on hiatus, and I went, take it off my pull list.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to come back with it. And it still disappoints me that I dropped that book. It still disappoints me that book disappointed me. Because I never, like it was one of my favorite books. And then I was just like, another guy died. Sure he did. Yeah. Because it was all, like I said, the last story I read was this one big, huge chase scene with these 2 assassin factions trying to kill each other in Mexico. And it's like, so what if they kill each other? They can just come back. That has now been established in this book. You can kill someone and they can come back. But that's the one comic that got dropped off my pull list.
Okay. No, when you mentioned it the other day that you don't drop anything, it's like, I was like that for a long time too. Is I just kept, certain books that I would buy them almost out of habit, not necessarily of.
But it's different. Story. It's different when it's Marvel and DC. Mm-hmm. Because all the books on my pull list are indies that the same creative team does every month.
Right.
So it's different than if you put Spider-Man on your pull list, and all of a sudden some artist or writer comes on that you don't like, and you just continue to buy it, and you're like, why am I buying this book? That's different than when like Deadly Class was the same two guys, was Rick Remender and Wes Craig. It was like, and that they say, you put Usagi Yojimbo on your pull list, it's going to be Stan Sakai month after month, year after year, decade after decade. So that's kind of the difference between putting an indie on your pull list and putting a Marvel or DC. The Marvel or DC, they could change the whole book on you. And you'd be like, oh, this is not the book I put on my pull list. It's done by completely different creators. Mm-hmm. You still awake over there, Paolo?
Not for long.
He's falling asleep on us tonight. Did you read any comics this week, Paolo?
No.
Not
even the pirated ones. There was nothing interesting to pirate.
Oh boy, you're not trying hard enough. Plenty of interesting things to pirate. I also have been reading. Are either of you Doonesbury fans?
I haven't read Doonesbury in I don't know how long.
I'm rereading a collected edition that must have come out in the early 90s called Uncle Duke Action Figure. And in case you don't know who Uncle Duke is, he was the character that Gary Trudeau based on Hunter S. Thompson.
Ooh.
So when he was introduced in the 70s, he was this drug-addled, drug-taking writer from who wrote for Rolling Stone. I should say wrote for Rolling Stone in air quotes, because he was usually too stoned on something to actually write. And he's just this sort of crazy, narcissistic Hunter S. Thompson, drug-addled character who has story arcs that are nuts. Because first he was a writer for Rolling Stone, but he never wrote anything. And there's a character called Zonker, who was one of the original, who was like a pothead in the 70s. It's his Uncle Duke, so that's where he gets his name from. And then I think the second story arc, he gets appointed. Oh, he gets appointed by Gerald Ford to be the appointed governor of American Samoa. So now he's got this job being the governor of American Samoa, and he's just nuts. He just throws parties and orders, and it's like MacArthur is the name of his like Samoan sidekick, who his attaché secretary who tries to keep him in line. And eventually there's a scandal because he's looking to take bribes the whole time. So there's a scandal, and he gets kicked out of there. So then he somehow after that gets appointed ambassador to China. This is in the 70s still. And he of course is a drug-addled fool there, and there's all jokes about it. And then he has to go back to the U.S., and he somehow gets a job as the GM of the Washington Redskins in the late 70s. And all he's doing is he's managing all the players' drugs so they can get them back in the game. That's just nuts. But my favorite, the one that'll explain Uncle Duke to you is one of my favorite panels. He had a house in Colorado that he'd come back to every now and then. And the caretaker of the house was named Zeke. So one day Uncle Duke goes back to his house. He doesn't tell Zeke he's coming back. It's nighttime. It's dark out. And Zeke opens the door to go into his house he's taken care of. And Uncle Duke shoots him. He just opens fire with a handgun. And Zeke's like, "What the hell are you doing? You're shooting me." And Duke's like, I didn't know it was you. I didn't know who it was. He's like, so you just shoot into a room? He's like, so you just shoot? He's like, I like to soften up a room before I enter. And that's just Uncle Duke. He likes to soften up a room before he enters. But that's been a lot of fun rereading that stuff. And it actually came with a little action figure. That a little Uncle Duke action figure with a bottle of gin.
I remember them advertising that. I remember seeing that.
To me, Doonesbury is one of the now 5 classic cartoons of my lifetime and one before my lifetime. There's Doonesbury, Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes, The Far Side, and the Gasoline Alley is now in that upper echelon for me of 5 best comic strips that I've read. Those are my favorites.
I never read
Gasoline Alley. What was that?
I never read Gasoline Alley.
It only made it up there when
the other ones.
Drawn in Quarterly, must be 10, 15 years ago now, started putting out the public domain volumes of them called Walton Skeezicks. First time I ever read it, they're brilliant. They're so good. No Flash Gordon? No, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I like them. Don't get me wrong. I like Flash Gordon. I have some of that, but sort of they just don't make it into my my best ever. I mean, there's
a clear separation of audiences between traditional humorous comic book strips and adventure comic book strips.
Gasoline Alley is that's more of a slice of life strip. It's not an adventure strip. It's not really a gag a day strip.
Although there is one thing that I still read online, which is The Phantom.
Ah, okay.
And that thing, that thing has been trying. They need a new writer because it's obvious that the guy is running out of ideas. For the last year or so, they haven't moved anywhere with the idea of whether they're going to kill the Phantom or not. Only the current ongoing Sunday strip is actually doing something interesting, but the daily hasn't been doing much lately, and quite frankly,
I like Walt Kelly's Pogo too, but I think that would be one level down for me than the 5. Whatever that next level is, and whatever else is in there, Pogo is in there. I do like, but there's something. I mean, I could sing you all the lyrics to "Every Little Bug Got a Honey to Hug But Me," but no, that's the Spirit one. Deck Us All with Boston Charlie, Fa La 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 La, and Ali Guru. That's from 10 Ever Loving Blue-Eyed Years with Pogo, but like I said, there's something about Pogo that I don't connect with culturally as much as those other 5. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to describe it, but it would be one notch down from them, and I do like it. I've got Pogo books. I've read them and enjoyed them thoroughly. But I said, I don't know how to describe it, except culturally, I don't connect with them as much, which is why Gasoline Alley surprised me so much. I never thought, because to me, those 4 were my top 4 for most of my adult life. And I never thought I was going to put another one in, but Gasoline Alley, I did. I just liked it so much. Like even I've got the complete set of Terry and the Pirates over there, and I still haven't I like it, but I still haven't made it all the way through them. Because there's something I don't connect with there with Terry and the Pirates. And it's not like when I read them, I don't get into them, because I do. But I don't always go, let me read the next one.
I need to read more Johnny Hazard, especially from early on.
Yeah, I haven't read a lot of Johnny.
I've only read 2 or 3 stories. I also need to read Mike Roper and Steve Nomad.
Ah,
Or is it Mike Mike Nomad and Steve? It's Mike Nomad and Steve Roper.
yeah, Steve Roper, right?
Mike Nomad and Steve Roper. I was interested in trying that. Not sure if I want, because that thing had a very weird evolution. It started out as a humor strip called Big Chief Wahoo, and then it morphed into an adventure travel strip. So kind of a weird evolution.
I figured I'd pull this out. This is the Pogo box set 1 and 2. I think they're up to 5 now. But I still haven't read these. It's like I've had them sitting on my shelf for a couple of years now. And I still have to pull them out and actually read them. This is, let's see, 49 to 50 and 51 to 52. I mean, these Pogo is really good. If you've never read Pogo, matter of fact, I have to find. There's one panel from Pogo that I always used to keep in my. I had it taped inside of my wallet, and it said, I think it was Albert the Al. I can't remember if it was Pogo or Albert. Who was it saying? I had collections when I was a kid. Yeah, that'll make you like it more a lot of times because you get to pore over them when you were a kid too. But he was saying, what was it? Which is one of my mottos in life. If they can fight good and forgive, they'll end up friends. But if they start screaming right off the bung, they'll end up enemies. And I have to find the strip that came from because it, like I said, I used to have a photocopy of it in my wallet, but it disintegrated eventually. But words to live by from Pogo Possum.
See, I don't think I ever really got into other, the ones you mentioned. I definitely read and have collections of The Far Side,
Right.
a handful of Peanut stuff. I was more getting the not the full big tomes they were giving out, but when I was younger, they would have like little magazine size, not magazine size, little digest size of the Peanuts.
Oh, the pocket books.
The pocketbooks, and I remember reading those a lot and enjoying those. But like Calvin and Hobbes, I have volumes of it, of every time they would put out. Every 10 years they would put out a group or something like that. So I have a lot of those. The Far Side books, I have a lot of those. But I never really got into much of the action adventure stuff. I own Buck Rogers set, and I own a few of the Supermans and the Batman ones. And I tend to, when I'm thinking about it, the Batman ones, when they would put the Sunday strips together, there was a big volume of just the Sunday strips. And I enjoyed those more than the weekly strips. And I don't know if it's because the weekly strips kind of like build up to what was, and you get like the full story in the Sunday strips. So you could almost skip the week strips, the daily strips, and just read the Sunday strips, and you could just get the whole story that way. And I have to look back at the Batman ones because I do have a few that are just as they. For some reason, this particular set was made where you read one or the other. They weren't together. So it was basically you had to kind of look for the weekly strips and then look for the Sunday strips and then decide if you wanted to read them together or not. And so I wanted to check to see if you can just read one without the other. And I think they were kind of formatted that way. But I don't know if that's how they originally put it.
Now, often in comic strips, the Sunday strip was not in the same continuity as the weekday strips because they knew there were some people who only got Sunday papers.
Right.
So that they wanted it to have its own continuity.
Well, it's not the continuity. It is in the same continuity. It's just not.
It's not the same storyline.
Yeah, not the same storyline because the Sundays have their own storylines.
Right. That's what you.
Okay.
Yes, they did take place in the same world. They were the same characters, just doing different things.
But yeah, so I never really got into the hero stuff. Even when Spider-Man was in the dailies, I just didn't. I read it, but it wasn't like that's what I went for. And I wasn't one to get a newspaper daily anyway. So it's like I didn't follow.
I remember when Spider-Man first made it into the newspapers. I don't know, late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I remember enjoying reading those strips, but I don't think I read them for very. Who was the villain in those? Like the Rattlesnake or Constrictor or some, there was a new villain created for the strip. Well, I can't remember who it was now, but it was some snake-like creature that I remember thought looked cool. No, it wasn't. The Constrictor was the Hulk villain, so maybe Rattlesnake. I don't remember, but I just remember thinking he looked cool. John Romita drew him.
Right.
Spider-Man didn't fight the eel. The eel was a Human Torch and then a Captain America villain.
Yeah, he was made up for the strip, so it was cool to see something new in the strip. I remember that. I remember thinking that was the coolest. Ooh.
Yeah, the ones that they made up for the 80s cartoon were definitely not the coolest. Remember Video Man?
Swarm. But not.
He was from the Champions, made of living bees.
I've read a few Superman daily strips, and I mean, they're kind of boring. But they're kind of boring because they resemble Silver Age Superman comics.
Yeah, that'll do it. And the one comic I got this week, the new #1 that made my pull list, has the worst cover. It's just, I don't know, that doesn't grab my eye at all. Matter of fact, I was at the comic shop. I already put this off and put it on my stack, and someone went, "Oh, a bullet in a Russian nesting doll." I was like, "Is that what that is?" I didn't even notice.
Yeah,
it's a while to figure it out, but yeah, that's what it is. But it's like,
and one of the reasons this made my pull list is right there. It says 1 of 4. So since things usually don't go off my pull list, it's easier for me to put miniseries on my pull list because they go off by themselves. But I liked the Mike Deodato artwork in this. It's who does this? Colin Bunn and Mike Deodato Jr. and Lee Lowridge again. There we go. But it's what I liked let me show you. It's so photo referenced that it looks like Paul Galassi.
Why do they still insist on Mike Deodato Jr.? Mike Deodato and Mike Deodato Jr. are the same person. Deodato's father was only published in the U.S. market when they reprinted the Brazilian comic once by Dark Horse.
But I like the way he's doing the storytelling and breaking up the panels. It's very, very graphic designy, where sometimes he's taking a panel and making it into 3 panels. And I found that effective. I didn't examine it too closely, but I found it effective. So I was like, you know what? I'll buy 3 more issues of this. $4 an issue, no problem. When I know there's an exit too, that makes it easier to. But really, there's a couple of panels that I'm like, oh man, this looks like Paul Galassi because it's so graphic, designy, photo based. They both end up in the same. When you're copying shadows off a photo, that's kind of its own style that Paul Galassi did for years and years. And the story is this I think he's a professor of Russian history and this and that, and he's got a lot of connections in Russia. So this guy who's this mercenary guy is like, oh, we got to pick up this woman in Russia. She wants to defect, and she wants you there. So can we hire you to come along with us? We're the military type guys. You just interface with her, and we'll get her out. Of course, everything goes wrong. Everybody dies, except this woman's daughter and this, writer Russian expert. So now, for the next 3 issues, they're going to have to try and escape Russia. So it's like an action book, nothing particularly new or innovative, but well done. There's some nice gunfight scenes. Good enough to be the one of the 4 that got on my pull list. But I got to say, all of these are probably limited series. But if they don't tell me that,
right?
I'm not going to assume they are.
I think a lot back in the day, a lot of the indie guys understood that if they marketed something as a mini series, then people wouldn't pick it up. Which I actually find to be the opposite. I think people are more likely to want to try a complete story if they know it ends, because if they didn't like it, no harm done.
Right. I like it because like I said, I rarely take things off my pull list, so I have to like it to put it on. I have to know I'm going to live with it for a while. And most stuff goes off my pull list at most within 2 years. There's very few Savage Dragon and Usagi Yojimbos who have been there for decades. Most stuff comes and goes.
I do wonder if Deodato is getting any cues from Bun on how to set up the page, because I don't think that Deodato need it, but
yeah, I don't know.
Some things are very specific.
They could have come up with it together, the look they wanted.
Sure,
because it is a very specific look.
Because Cullen Bunn has never had anything that attracted me so far.
Yeah, me either. I've only picked up a couple of his things here and there. I remember when he was one of those. He was big at like DC. Was he writing for
Marvel?
And I knew, I saw people on YouTube who would pick up his stuff because he was the writer on it. But he hadn't done many indie things at that. I don't know, maybe 5 years ago.
Here in Portugal, the only thing that they published. But here in Portugal, the only thing they published from him was Harrow County. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I knew his name before Harrow County from, I think he did DC work, maybe Marvel, and I would see people like on YouTube showing their whole back when I used to, there used to be people on YouTube buying comics weekly, showing some Colin Bunn stuff. People, he was kind of a fan favorite, but I didn't know him. The Damned, his early miniseries from Oni Press, I think. That is where I first was. Yeah, I didn't know that. So I guess he has been doing indie stuff for a while, but I think he made his name at DC. I'm not 100% sure now. But he did a good job with it. This was a solid B with interesting artwork. Yeah, 2006 was that series. That was a long time ago now. Wow.
Yeah.
The Damned from... I hardly ever see Oni books on the shelf. It's like Oni books you have to pre-order or I never see them. Never see them. But like, what did I just... One of the... the Charlie Adler book that I've been buying, which all of a sudden I can't remember the name of. That was just announced that it's going to be an ongoing now. I guess it was originally supposed to be. That's another one. They don't tell. Sometimes they tell you in the, like if you go to previews or sometimes in Comic Shop Weekly, I see that it's going to be 6 issues or 5 issues. But it's like, tell me in the comic. So I know, but they don't. Like I could buy I could maybe, like, Barbarella is for sure a miniseries. But I don't know. I could maybe buy 3 more issues of Barbarella, but I'm not gonna because I don't know. And Hunt, Kill, Repeat. Maybe I could buy 3 more issues of Hunt, Kill, Repeat, but I don't know if it's a mini or not. So if it said 1 of 4 up there, that would actually change my perspective of if I'm going to put it on my pull list or not.
It was kind of,
Because
I mean, for me, when I started getting comics, I was fine with miniseries because I was kind of used to them. You know, that was how you knew if whether or not maybe you'll continue the series.
Right.
Because I always got miniseries, you know, 1 of 5, 1 of 12. And then, you know, my favorite one was the Transformers because it was 1 of 4. And then all of a sudden, here's a 5th issue. And then they just took off the miniseries part and it just kept running. You know, because they just kept that numbering system.
I'm remembering hearing something years ago, probably in the early 2000s. The reason they took miniseries off of stuff was because the first issue wouldn't sell as well if people knew it was a miniseries. Because you want your first issues to be valuable. And first issues of miniseries weren't as valuable as first issues of long-running series. But now that we don't have long-running series, I wonder if anybody's thinking like that anymore, if that even matters. Like, clearly, I'd say most indie comics don't put miniseries numbers on it. Some do, like AWA here. But I don't know about like does Marvel still put miniseries on their miniseries? I mean, we know everything with Marvel is a miniseries these days.
Well, now they are marketing more stuff as miniseries without being an event.
Right. They do the point stuff now. I think Marvel for a while was marking their miniseries as like Spider-Man 275, point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. That way you knew where it took place, and it was a miniseries that branched off from that time. I thought that was kind of interesting.
No, I don't know.
Dan Cloud's book coming out this year. Monica is what it's called.
I think all DC miniseries, the way you could tell that they're a miniseries if the word crisis is in the cover. So that's the only way you know that that's a miniseries. But I haven't really seen it on the cover, 1 of whatever.
Right. Dan Cloud's books are automatic buys for me. So I'll be getting that for next Christmas since it's coming out in October. I'll put it on my Christmas wish list. Oh, yeah. Dan Cloud's automatic buy.
Dan Klaus, the most important person in U.S. comics outside the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, didn't he win that award in France? Was that him?
Yeah. Yeah, and he was even a
knight, or not a knight, whatever that was.
Yeah. Well, here's the way that they are picking Americans for awards in the Angoulême Festival. It's like I keep saying, Fantagraphics is going to become the most relevant U.S. publisher in the world.
After all, they put out Bernie Krigstein, Volume 1. The Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise book wasn't listed on the cover as a miniseries. Yeah, I guess then. Oh yeah, Paulo, never knew that.
No, you have to check the Angoulême page or go to the Angoulême French Wikipedia article so you can read the lists of awards, because that's where. Let me see if I can find all the lists of awards. So,
list of awards.
So who won stuff this year? Because Klaus was the head commissar, the head commissar this year.
Dan
and
Clowes.
the big one.
Have you read a lot of Dan Clowes, Paulo?
Not really.
No?
No.
I've read everything he's done.
I want to try something.
My favorite might be David Boren, but I like Raygun is really good. If you like superhero books, no, Death Ray, that's it. Death Ray might be good. Because Death Ray is sort of superhero-ish, and it's the story of a guy who gets a literal death ray. And just a normal everyday guy. If he fires this death ray at you, you just disappear, never to be heard from again. Huh. I probably missed it, but is that a Barbarella there, Jared? Is it any good? It didn't make it on my pull list, but it is good. It's a solid B. As I said before, I'll give you a glimpse. I had no problem understanding. It's issue 1 of The Center Cannot Hold. It's got some decent artwork in it. It annoyed me that Dynamite puts ads in the middle of their book. It annoys me that they don't tell me if it's a miniseries or not, even though I know it is, because all their Barbarellas are miniseries. So those two annoyances kept me from putting it on my pull list. But it's going in my bought just for their covers section, so I'll keep it. But if you're looking for a solid B comic to read, get yourself some Barbarella. The Center cannot hold.
I'm just fascinated there's a Barbarella comic. And it's like,
Yeah.
and I'd say it's just that, I've seen some of the French comics years ago. I mean, I think in the 80s was when the last time I saw like a collected edition. And I didn't, again, something that has its roots in comics, I just never thought anyone was going to do anything with it. So I'm more just, I'm interested only in the concept. What did they do to it? So that might be something I may look out for just because of my own curiosity about it.
Yeah, you're right. It is weird that it exists because how many Barbarella fans are out there? And what made them think Barbarella? There's an untapped audience for Barbarella comics. That's I don't know. I mean, they've kept it going for a long time. How long was 10 years at least there have been Barbarella comics? Huh. I'm always tempted to pick it up again. I was getting it when the first Dynamite series was coming out. Yeah, this one was solid. If you're looking for a comic to buy, pick it up. Like I said, it was pretty good. Pretty good stuff. Barbarella. The old stuff is naughty.
Usually, yeah. Well, yeah, it is. That's the problem because when Mike Carey reintroduced Barbarella specifically for an American audience, he was here in Portugal for a science fiction convention, and I interviewed him, and he said he was going to tone down the sexual aspects.
Huh. Humanoids did a collected edition of the original back in 2014, I think. You know what? Comic Crack, I just read this Hello, Eliza, and got a sense of deja vu. I have no idea why. It's like all of a sudden I feel I know someone named Eliza and I'm missing them. And I don't know anyone named Eliza. What's going on in my brain? Deja vu. No, it's Vujade. The feeling that none of this has ever happened before.
There aren't many European characters that you can license to produce stories for the American market. I guess Barbarella would be the best, not just because of people remember the movie, but I mean, if I try to do a Rahan comic, nobody's going to pick it up. And yeah, nope, no, can't be done.
But yeah, Barbarella. I guess people remember Barbarella. The only one I ever hear talk about Barbarella is Howard Stern. He was just telling the story because when he was a kid, because Howard Stern always talks about his non-relationship with his. He didn't have his a good relationship with his father in terms of his father was emotionally distant. But when he was a kid, his father took him to see Barbarella, and it was really uncomfortable. Being a 12-year-old Howard Stern watching Barbarella with his father. I creep on your show after show often, Jared. Oh, that's good to know. But still, in my brain, I remembered saying hello to somebody named Eliza, and in my brain, and I'm like, do I know it? I'm trying to rack my brain to remember. Isn't she an iconic level now? Barbarella? I don't think so.
No.
I think she may have been in the late 60s, but I think if you asked your average person who Barbarella is, they wouldn't know. And if you tell them Jane Fonda, there's a good shot they wouldn't know her, or they'll still be mad at her from the Vietnam War.
Wasn't there also a song about Barbarella? Or the name was used in a song that was famous for a little while?
I don't know. I don't know that song if there was one.
Electric Barbarella by Duran Duran.
Oh, Duran Duran did one. Oh, okay. They were popular.
If we're talking about things set in space featuring female characters in France, I don't know, maybe Cyan from Bourgeon.
All right,
or I guess Lorelei from the Valerian comics.
Comic Crack picked up a graphic album the other day written by Jerome Charon Paulo called Margot in Bad Town, put out by Tundra in 1991. Wow.
Never heard.
Huh. Of course, Duran Duran is a Barbarella character. Ah, yeah. That's what they named themselves after.
Because Barbarella's biggest competitor would be Druna.
Okay,
but
I know
Druna is actually softcore porn. So
she's the one with the really big butt with lots of hatching on it.
Yeah.
Huh. Who drew that?
Paulo Eleutério Serpieri.
I just remember seeing that picture everywhere. I may have a volume of it. I don't, in my European section, I don't even remember. But that image is certainly burned in my mind. Druna, so good. So good, so good.
Mm-hmm.
Do. I've got a Duran Duran song in my head. I don't even know which one. Bird of Paradise. I agree. She's in some heavy metal mags. That's where I must have seen her too.
Mm-hmm.
She used to run in ads for heavy metal too. That one picture of her butt all rendered. I mean, the rest of her was in it too, but we all remember her butt.
The only Druna album I have is Morbus Gravis, which is the one everybody has.
Me and the guys at work would have called that sturdy back in the day.
They should use Druna art in Sir Mix-a-Lot.
And I'll show Comic Crack this book because he missed it at the beginning, probably. A music and art book. Face It, Debbie Harry, which is her biography. But there's photos in it and fan art. I got it for the art. And here we go. photos with art drawn over it. I think she drew this stuff. The photos and art, I think, is hers. I don't remember. But it's a pretty cool art book. Oh, there she is with John Waters. But terribly bound. You can't open it. Face it, Debbie had such good book design wasted by bad binding. I don't understand.
They have
I
to
saw a bit. Oh, fan art sounds. Oh, there's some nice fan art. She almost looks like she's crying black. I'm currently watching a Druna original page on an auction. It's fantastic. That reminds me, I didn't want to mention it because I don't have it yet, but I will mention it since she mentioned original art. You try to slip a knife down the spine. The spine is free. There is 100% clearance between the spine and the binding. You can slip a knife down there easy, but the binding still doesn't bow. I don't know why. You remember last year when I was buying that I was reading the Andy Warhol and Edie Sedgwick books and was buying the pop art covers, a Millie the Model one, and Archie one, and one of you two found I think we did a bunny comic in our Rip Read and Slab, and then one of you two found a pop art bunny comic, and I've had that pop art bunny comic on my want list on mycomicshop.com for a while now. So occasionally I check eBay for it too, but I just haven't bought it yet because that one bunny pop art comic will cost like, with shipping like $25 or something. I just haven't got it yet. I'll get it eventually. But what popped up was some bunny original art from a place in Canada, an art seller in Canada. I think there needs to be some Druna on Graphic Man. What do you think, Paulo?
No, Graphic Man will not allow nudity. It's something for Gore's lawyers to fix. You have to send your lawyers after Graphic Man.
But I ended up on a sort of whim because there was this one panel, which I'll show you when I get it. You know how there's these, panels that become memes that have, the Archie comics covers that rise up in price because of the unintentional sexual innuendo in it.
Right.
Well, there's one of those panels in this page of original art. And I was just like, whoa. And it's a really nice page too, well drawn. And I was like, and I think it cost me $95 shipped American to get it shipped from Canada. And so I just on a whim, I was like, I have to have this page because it was like $60 plus $30 shipping. And I was like, I have to have this page. I have to have it. And I'm like, all right, buy it now. $95, I think it was altogether with tax and shipping. I'm like, 95. I haven't bought an original art, and it's twice up.
Right.
Harvey Comics original page from 68. Bunny number 11. There's this evil witch character riding a broomstick, and it just spoke to me. I was like, oh my goodness, the double entendres in this panel. So when I get the original art, I'm going to scan it in and show it to you. And like I said, it's just terrific. I was like, I wasn't even looking to spend $95. I wasn't looking, and my car was in the shop again. And I was like, which ended up costing me nothing because for those of you who don't know, 2 weeks ago, check engine light came on. Cost me $210 to get there, $215 to get the check engine light turned off. A week later, the check engine light came on again, brought it into my shop. Turns out the part they put in was bad. They put it in, didn't cost me anything the second time, so I was good. But even I was like, oh, I don't want to buy anything right now because I might have to pay some more on the car. But still, I saw that panel and I was like, I have to get this. I have to get this.
Especially when it's at a good price.
I'm like $95. I can do that easy. I may not have a ton of money, but I can do $95 right now.
Right.
So we'll be seeing that on the show from March 23rd. I don't know when it's supposed to be here. From the 13th to the 23rd somewhere. But just, oh man, this panel just made me have to buy it. Bunny number 11. Now I have to get the original comic too.
Yeah.
Because I can't have a page of original art
without having a book.
Right. But yeah, twice up art. So it's like 14 by 20.
You're going to have to get a portfolio just for that.
Yeah. But if you guys want some original art from Canada, look up Bunny number 11 on eBay. They got more pages of it. Maybe some of them will speed. And for, $95 American, you get yourself a nice page of original art. Couple of pages, since they probably, stack up ship. I was so flustered, I didn't even look at the rest of the stuff. I was like, look at more. Throw another $60 on, get another page. I was like, I have to get this because I was actually I had $250 in PayPal because a job came my way, quick job doing production on someone's Kickstarter comic. Got $250 for it. They paid me through PayPal. And I was like, ooh, I should buy some comics or something from mycomicshop.com with some of this money because it felt like found money. And sometimes PayPal doesn't seem like real money when you have it there. But I ended up transferring it to my bank account anyway. But I was like I have a want list on mycomicshop.com, mostly stuff that's filling in holes on the Spirit, Bone, and Strangers in Paradise, plus a couple like that Bunny comic or a couple other things. And every now and then I go in there and I go, oh, what if I get this and this and this? How it'll cost me? And it's always like about $75. And I'm always, 12 of it being shipping and 5 of it being tax. And I'm always kind of like, I don't, because once again, there's a difference between reading comics and buying comics. And this would be strictly buying comics because it's like for filling in holes of my Spirit collection, which I haven't read since the 80s. So the odds that I even read these new comics that I'm buying are like pretty low. But it's like, So I haven't bought. I put in like one order a year for Lone Star when I spend like $100 or so, or 75, 80, $100 just to fill in some holes here and there. My Lone Star want list is gigantic. Yeah. But you will at least read them. Like I said, these ones, my Lone Star list is like I go to the comic shop every week, so I read tons of comics. So it's not like I have to go out looking for more comics to read. Lone Stars for comics to buy. What's funny, if they were right in front of me, I'd probably just buy them. Here's $20. Give me those 4 comics. Next week, here's $20. But since you have to put it all in an order and then you have shipping and it's like, I don't want to spend $75 online. If it was in person at my shop, here's 4 20s. Give me those.
Right.
Yeah, you know what it is? I'm a cash person because that limits me to how much cash I have. When I spend money on credit cards, which is usually always online, that bill just builds and builds and builds until the end of the month, you're like, how much did I spend? And I just hate that. How much did I spend? Feeling that I prefer cash. You mentioned Jane Fonda earlier. She appeared in a Phantomos comic book. Phantomos is showing her a Louis Buñuel film, Exterminating Angels. She was one of the many celebrity girlfriends. I think I did 4 purchases from them last year. I usually only did 1 a year before that. Yeah, true enough. Yeah, he reads his comics from Lone Star. Like I said, the last thing I think I was filling in issues of Wolverine McAllister. Guess what? I haven't read them. But my collection of Wolverine McAllister, which I haven't read since the 80s, has all the issues in it. Madness. But as Wilson has taught us, there's a difference between buying comics and reading comics.
Although the 4-color fossils have declared war on slabbing.
See, I don't care one way or the other about slabbing. People want to slab, waste their money.
Charlton 66 did a 58-minute rant.
It's like, to me, for most, slabbing is a craft project now. That's what it is. It's
Charlton 66 is a very calm YouTuber, and he's always talking about showing the stuff, taking the time to show up the stuff that he likes. And then he does a 58-minute rant about slabbing.
I don't think I've ever heard about him doing a rant. You're right. I think Grotto is going to have a heart attack over slabbing.
Well, but Grotto's whole shtick is that he's intense.
Well, you can tell them that I bought a piece of Harvey original art. So I wonder if any of them has any. Do any of them on Graphic Man's 4-color fossils have they ever shown any bunny comics?
Not that I remember.
Yeah, I
haven't. Not even Jimbo, and Jimbo likes good girl art.
Bunny comics probably haven't been talked about on YouTube until you mentioned it.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. We have. There's a couple of guys who talk about comics published by Avon in 1952. And if it's not Jimbo, if it's not Jimbo, it's definitely Night Tiger Comics.
Didn't they also put out the Ronald McDonald comic book? Or was that Charleston?
Was that the teacup cover art you bought? No, I didn't buy cover art. I bought interior art. It was I think it was issue 11, page 4. If you want to look, Bunny issue 11, page. The bottom panel is this witch riding a balloon, riding a broom, and there's this whole thing about her wanting to be evil and feeling the vibrations of the universe and wanting to be bad as she's riding, and it's just like, I'm like, I have to be doing this on purpose. Just to amuse me. One of those, sexual double entendres in kids comics. That's like, whoa, how was this one never discovered before? It's pretty blatant and obvious. I have plenty of friends who will appreciate it. So I can't wait to get it and see the original art. Like I said, I haven't seen it in color. I've never seen the comic, so I haven't seen it in color. Well, I have to look for the comic. There's a cupcake diving into a tea. I had to look for. Okay, so that's that. I don't even know. I haven't even looked up the cover yet. Diving into a tea. Okay, I haven't even looked up the cover yet. But yeah, I haven't seen any covers for it. But it's like the cover to issue number 6. That's a pop art cover that I wanted to get the actual comic book for. That's what eventually led me to this interior page of number 11. All right, well, we should wrap it up for the evening. We're at the end of our time.
Mm-hmm.
Paulo needs to get to bed.
I do.
All right.
Although
next
next
week
week I'll be
good
closer.
night out there. We will catch you next week, and have a good one.